Morning, YouTube. Let's grab TikTok. Let's grab the talk. And we'll get this party started. We are not in school over the summer to keep those things alive. We have tried. Everything dies in July and August. Don't be so arrogant. Oh man. The comments I get from these triggered teachers are just hilarious. It's always these triggered teachers that, like, no matter what you say, they defend the system because they take it as an attack on them personally. And, like, those are the worst type of people because they're more worried about their status as a teacher than actually pointing out, hey, there's something wrong here. Hey, Stephanie, but if they would just speak honestly and say, hey, there's something wrong here with the system or there are limitations to the system, that would actually improve their status in a way that actually means something, right? Because it would be rooted in they are taking a stand and saying what is true, but instead they get triggered at me because I point out that their system is what it is. I get a lot of butthurt teachers that come at me, which is hilarious. I also get a lot of teachers that inbox me and they're like, thank you for what you're doing. This is what I've been wanting to say. This is the problem with the system. But it's an interesting look at human psychology. In fact, really, everything with gaining a big account and putting out videos that reach a lot of people, it is a fantastic insight into human psychology. And you see the full spectrum, people who won't take responsibility for anything, people who are victims, people who want to blame the world, versus the other side of the spectrum where people are taking a lot of personal responsibility and they're speaking truth, and it's an interesting paradigm to see. Hey, Pharma Mama Bear. All right, what a day indeed. Let's grab TikTok. Live. Homeschool and Homestead. Hello, TikTok. You are here with YouTube, and it is a beautiful day here in the sunny South. The birds are chirping, the squirrels are running around, the sun is shining, the grass is always greener, and of course the sky is beautiful and blue. So today we are going to talk about homeschooling. We are going to talk about homesteading, and we are going to talk about me being one nervous homeschool daddy. There was a 4-day camp at one of the local churches, and Brady wanted to go, so I obliged, and I thought it'd be good for him. And today is the first day of a Monday through Thursday 4-day camp just for this week. It's a 1-week camp. And Brady wanted to go, so I signed him up, and I just dropped him off. And as I drove away, I don't know how people do that permanently, where they drop their child off somewhere, but for 4 days it's fine, and it's at the local church, so I feel good about it. But yeah, that was a big step for us, and that was, Brady has classes. He already goes to a class at a different church on Sundays that he really enjoys, so good morning the patriotic hippie. But today we're going to talk about homeschooling, and really the summertime is such a great time for homeschooling because you have the opportunity to educate your children outside in nature, doing real world things, doing them in context. And ultimately, it's in context learning that is the most meaningful. It is in context learning that is the most powerful. So, what we've been doing with our nature unit study this year is the students have been gardening, essentially, right? And so far, they've done a lot of really cool activities. They've built their own garden boxes. They made their own little greenhouses to get their seedlings started. They've researched their planting zones. They've researched topography on maps. They've looked into the Mississippi River, the Rocky Mountains. They have planted seeds, sprouted seeds, constructed garden boxes, set up their gardens, moved their little sprouts outside. They've made fertilizer out of bananas. They've made fertilizer out of eggshells, which is a really cool process. So many cool things they've done as part of our nature unit study. They've built ladybug feeders. They've built bumblebee baths. They have made candles out of wax. We've shown them, and they've been given the option to make their candles and sell them online on the Facebook Marketplace or a site like Etsy. Our 22nd lesson from 2 weeks ago was actually all about how, if they choose, they could start a summer flower business in which they plant a bunch of flowers, and once they grow, they could host a sale at their front yard garden, right? They could do video marketing. They could make a sign and put it on the corner. They could sell door to door. They could call a local garden center and see if they want to buy it wholesale, right? So all this stuff they're doing with their nature unit study, they're developing those critical thinking faculties. They are developing the skills. They're composting. They're making fertilizer. They're constructing garden boxes. All while, as they do this stuff, as they do lessons on the flower, we're teaching them to draw through drawing flowers. We're teaching them videography through documenting different steps throughout the process. We're teaching them photography, having them take close-up pictures of a flower with the sunset in the background, which is super cool, right? So they are thinking critically, they are developing skills, and we are giving them opportunities, options, guidance to receive entrepreneurial experience. And when you combine those three things, when you combine critical thinking, skill development, and entrepreneurial experience, you have a recipe for success. You have a recipe for that child growing up and being capable of doing real things in the real world, because they not only have the critical thinking faculties, they not only have the experience, but they have the mindset. And when you combine all those things, that is a young person who is going to be ready to do things in the world. And I always tell parents, public school fails 95% of children. Why does it fail 95% of children? Because 95% of 18-year-olds, even if they do everything they're supposed to, tell me about your 18-year-old. Went to class every day, did extracurriculars, was captain of the lacrosse team, was in the chess club, played music, volunteered around the community, right? Volunteered at a soup kitchen, worked on his studies, got A's, 100. That's amazing. When he's 18 years old, all right, what are his options? Well, he's going to go to college. Well, what if he doesn't want to go to college? Well, is he capable of doing anything else in the world? Oh, no. Wait, you mean you're telling me right now he was in your school program for 15 years? He did everything you asked of him. And at 18 years old, he's not capable, after 15 years of you having him, he's not capable of earning a living, of being independent and free? No. 95% of people are failed by the public school system when measured by that metrics. But that's not what we do. And as homeschool parents, we get our children real world experience. We teach them critical thinking, the process of learning and critical thinking over memorization. What does that look like? How do we teach critical thinking? When they study history, it's okay to memorize some history, but as they get older, ultimately what we want is for them reading primary documents from people on both sides of historical events, because when you do that, you're empowering your children to formulate their own unique understanding of what happened rather than regurgitate the nonsense or the belief of someone else in a position of authority. And you're training their mind to discern for themselves, to interpret for themselves, to use their critical thinking faculties, and know that they are smart enough to interpret what is going on in the world. When they study science, and by the way, one of the things I will be releasing in the next month is we are going to be releasing the first ever classical learner science curriculum. And I'm really excited about this because we are going to do it in a way that I haven't found any other company that does it this way. And it's getting back to the roots and prioritizing the scientific method. When your children study science, if you want critical thinkers, it's not about memorizing the Big Bang Theory. That's nice, right? You want them physically engaging with, having a hands-on relationship with the scientific method. You want them setting up controls, independent variables, dependent variables, right? Formulating their own hypothesis, testing them out. Understanding not only that they have the alchemical ability to alter things in this world. And when I say alchemical ability, most of the science experiments young children do are alchemical, right? They're alchemistry. So basically, you break it down simply. If you did an experiment with the child, hey, let's put water in a pot, heat that water up, it starts to boil. You alchemically changed, right, the chemical composition, the biological composition of the water, right? You're changing its chemistry. So when they study science, they should be studying the scientific method. And that is how you raise critical thinkers. And like I said, over the next month, one of the things we're really excited about is we will be putting together a science curriculum that specifically focuses on the scientific method. And it's coming out great, and it's something we're really excited about. But it's something that, regardless of, you can do with your children right now. I mean, you could go outside and you could set up controls, formulate a hypothesis, test something out. You could go into Pinterest, pull up a number of scientific experiments, right, and set up controls and do them. When your children study science, you teach them through the scientific method. Critical thinking. When they study English, how do you teach critical thinking? Do you have them do an assignment and then afterwards you give them back a paper with a bunch of red marks on it? You know what that does? It teaches the child nothing. They look at the grade, they take that paper, they crumple it up, they throw it out. No, when you do an English assignment with your child, when they do some writing, right? You sit down with them and you edit their writing with them. You go over it line by line. Hey, I love what you did here. This is your thesis. And it told me what the rest of this paragraph was going to be about. Right? I love that, or this is, I love that you put this topic sentence here, because when you put that sentence, I knew what was going to come behind it, right? So you're going through their writing, you're pointing out the grammar, you're saying, hey, I like what you did here, but I think you could have broke this sentence up into maybe two sentences. It ran on a little bit. You could have put a comma here, you could have put a period, you could have used a semicolon, you could have worded it like this. Some writers like to write in this style. Hey, you were talking in the third person here, and then you kind of broke to first person. So in general, with writing, what we want to do is remain with one style at a time. Now, that's a misnomer, because as your children become more talented in their writing ability, you actually want them to switch from past, present tense, right? Like that, but that's when you get more advanced as a writer. When they're young, you want to teach them to write within one tense. And then as they start to recognize that, you can show them cool things in which, okay, you can break from that tense and switch, right? But the point is that you want to teach them critical thinking through the process of learning grammar and writing. You want to teach them critical thinking through the process of doing the scientific method. You want to teach them critical thinking through the process of reading primary documents and studying history. By the way, I will go back and read your comments. I'll try to answer them, your questions, to the best of my ability. And if it's a topic I want to discuss, I'll discuss it. And if I don't, I won't. Let's see what the people... Oh, yeah, so just one more thing. So this week we're doing, as part of our nature unit study, we are moving on to herb identification, which is a really cool thing. And our students are going to be studying dandelions, how to identify dandelions. They're then going to go out into nature, find their own dandelions, pick them, take them back to the house, wash them off properly, and they're going to take those dandelions to, I haven't decided yet, to either make a tea or an herbal remedy using the dandelions. And they're going to study what the dandelions are good for, what they've been used for by naturopaths and people of that ilk, right? I got to be careful how I word things. Obviously you should never do anything without talking to a medical doctor, and, you guys get it. So, but they're going to be doing that, and it's something that we're really excited about, and it's the latest variation in what we're doing with our year-long nature unit study, and I'm excited to see what the kids come up with. So, all right, so let's go back and look at your questions. Patriotic hippie, crushing. Education instead of indoctrination. Exactly. I told my children's school they need to teach my child to think critically, and they said, that's my job. That's so funny. And people might think that's a joke. No, I hear stories like that all the time. Or I'll do, how I do my posts? And a lot of my posts are examples of unschooling, real world examples of how to do unschooling with your children. And I always start with why don't schools prepare children for the real world? Why don't schools teach children entrepreneurship? And you'd be amazed by how often I get back the comment, that's not the school's job. I mean, what is their job? To indoctrinate my child? That's not their job. Man. Yeah, I know. That's why I spend my life ripping the disgusting institution that is public school. Made a mockery of education. It's not their job. But what's their job? To indoctrinate my child into politically driven nonsense? Yeah, I got a problem with that. It's not their job. I begged my mom to homeschool me because public school made me so nervous I couldn't function. Yeah, well, I mean, you see it with the anxiety, with the depression, whether it's from the weird social cliques in schools, right? Like people talk about socialization. Like people go to the same school with all their classmates for many years and like they break into little cliques. Like there's a huge problem with bullying. There's no release. Like kids get bullied and they're not allowed to defend themselves. They're like, oh, if you get bullied, tell the teacher or the principal or the guidance counselor, and then they'll do nothing. But now you'll be labeled not only a weakling who gets bullied, but you'll be labeled a tattletale and a snitch and a rat, right? And then you'll get bullied even more. Rather than teaching children that if you get bullied, you need to learn to defend yourself. That's not the school's job to teach them that. Yeah, I know, school sucks. Because I'll tell you right now, if my children are getting bullied, it will be handled in a very different way. And it won't be telling them to go tell someone. I tell my children that there are people that will try to push you around and bully you in this world. And you need to make it loud and clear to them that that is against their self-interest. And you could extrapolate what that looks like, okay? But if they did that, then schools wouldn't have this problem with all the bullying, and they wouldn't have the problem with all the mental illness that derives from it, this continued anxiety, this stress, right? Like, these schools make a mockery. They invert everything, right? And that gets back to like, it's just, it's an attack on the masculine. It's the wussification of America. It's, like you'll get the. I remember I was in my master's program, and I was in a class, one of those big auditorium classes, and they were talking about bullying, right? And understand, I was in a program to be a teacher, right? And they were talking about bullying and how to deal with it, how to handle it, how to recognize it, blah, blah, blah. All this nonsense, right? Conflict resolution, right? All this nonsense. And I raised my hand and I was like, quite frankly, if it was my son, I would just tell him to punch them in the face. And like the looks of shock and awe, like, ugh, how can you say that? Like, it's the tyrannical feminine and it's nonsense. Like, no, what I said is correct. If your child is getting bullied, you teach your child to stop the bully by making it not worth their while. That's how you teach them to stop it. That's the appropriate reaction, right? And that's been taken away from our society. So instead you have like this nonsense psychiatry type society where they're trying to get everyone into therapy and everyone in this state. They're like, oh, it's so normal. It's so normal to be in a constant state of anxiety. It's so normal to be in depression. Like, okay, no, it is normal to feel anxious and to feel depressed at times. It is not normal to suffer from anxiety, to suffer from depression. That is a side effect of a system that is broken, a toxic system, right? And that goes for the same, like you always hear, this child's too hyper. He needs to be, this is what they say. They say he's too hyper. He needs to be chemically altered so that he could sit still in class. The problem is the child, right? No. The child is wired the way he was made to be wired. A lot of children, especially a lot of young boys, are hardwired. They're on the go, right? They want to go. They need to run. They need to jump. They need to roughhouse. They need to play. Well, the system will take that child, say, no, chemically alter him and make him sit in that seat. What? The problem isn't the child. The problem is the system. You don't adjust the child, you adjust the system. You don't adjust the child to fit into the system, you adjust the system to fit around the child. But the system will never say the problem is the system. It will say the problem is the children. Everything the public school system does is inverted. And that gets through our entire society. Everything is inverted. Lawyers kill law, doctors kill medicine, teachers kill education, news media kills news, kills journalism. It's the system. But that's why we homeschool, and we do things outside of the system, and we do things our way. And our children will be a lot stronger because of it. Hello, is your program all year long? Like right now, my kids are on summer break. Yeah, we actually do a year-long nature unit study. So in terms of homeschool programs for the summer, ours would be, I don't want to say we're like the best because there's a lot of great programs, but our year-long nature unit study is tailor-made for doing summer stuff with your kids. Like this week, they'll be doing herb identification and learning about dandelions, picking their own dandelions, learning about their, I have to be careful how I word this, benefits, right? Their benefits to you as a person. And then we're going to have them, I haven't decided yet, we're either going to have them make dandelion tea or a different herbal remedy. My wife is an acupuncturist and a doctor of Chinese medicine, so she's very knowledgeable in this area. So she's looking into what she wants to have them make for this week, which will be super cool. And that's classicallearner.com, Homeschools Connected. I teach a homeschool pod. Any kid could join it. That's awesome. I love that. Did I go to public school? Yes. But I made it out alive. You could extrapolate from my thoughts on bullying that I didn't get bullied. My father was a United States Marine. And the first time I got bullied, he calmly looked at me and said, I want you to go back over there and make sure you don't get bullied again. And that was a great life lesson for me. I remember it. I was 4 years old, and I looked back at him. I was like, yeah? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, and then I had the go-ahead. I was like, okay. Okay. Bad day for that kid. You chose the wrong kid to bully. What do I think about classical conversations? Classical conversations utilizes classical education, which breaks the learning process down into 3 phases of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. When I say phases, early childhood is the grammar phase, grades 1 through 4. Grades 5 through 8 is the logic phase, and high school is the rhetoric phase. So in early childhood, children focus on memorization, but not like, it's like, it still incorporates critical thinking. It's just children master grammar. Like they master the rules of grammar. They master languages, right? Like that type of thing. And then when they get to that middle school range, that logic phase, it's all about ABC logic. So like a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of interpreting, analyzing the works of this literature or that literature, going through your writing out logical arguments. And then high school is the rhetoric phase, which is the art of communicating what you know to other people. So rhetoric is like, you know, when you go on Facebook and you start having a political argument and you're making a logical argument and it's like the people you're talking to don't even hear it. That's because most people aren't logical. They're controlled through emotions, through rhetoric. And rhetoric is that art form of communicating with other people. So like, rather than like, do you vote for Joe Biden? Rather than be like, I don't vote for Joe Biden because his policy on blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, vote for Joe Biden? I don't vote for people that like to sniff girls' hair. Like, you know, just a rhetorical statement that's just funny and cuts through the programming is more effective, right? And like, you think, you believe that, those videos, that's nonsense, and then you just cut through it with more rhetoric, like, instead of getting, because once you break them down and make them laugh, then you could get into, all right, here's the logics of why, you know, I don't think this guy's great, you know? But, and I just use political examples because that's what everyone's familiar with, and, like, it's a topic that I could bring up and everyone has a general knowledge of. It's easy to point out. Like, what are other examples of rhetoric, like, that are you're very familiar with? We're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it, right? It's like every right-wing candidate in America for the last 25 years has ran on border security, right? But Trump, he came out and said, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it, right? Get the crowd fired up. And it's just a very rhetorically powerful statement because people could visualize a wall, right? That's very persuasive. They're like, a wall? Security, right? So, like, these are forms of rhetoric. Obama's very good at rhetoric when he tries to label his political opposition of being hateful. So rather than make a claim that they're hateful, he'll be like, how hard is it to say you're against blah, 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 right? Like, to say you're against supremacy, right? I gotta be careful how I word things on here. But Obama, he doesn't make the claim that the person is supporting those things. He just implies it with a question. That's rhetoric, right? And the most talented politicians, almost all of them that you see at that level, are actually very talented rhetoricians. Whether they're left-wing, whether they're right-wing, these people are very talented rhetoricians, which is why I always tell people, when you talk about politics, you don't bring logic to a rhetoric fight. You don't bring logic to a rhetoric fight, you'll get smoked in that area. You got to come with rhetoric. So in classical education, at the high school level, they teach rhetoric. So to answer your question, what do I think about classical conversations? I think they're dope. I like them. I like them. They just added microaggressions to the handbook. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, the whole system is designed to teach children to be divided. Like, to make it so they feel like they can't even communicate with each other. And every time they do, like, every time someone communicates with me, they're being aggressive at me. Like, that is a form of tyranny. And it really is. It's very interesting that we live in, it's the tyrannical feminine, right? Like, you'll hear when they paint a public narrative, it's always the opposite. So they'll say, we live in this patriarchy. We live in this patriarchy. But what you see with political correctness, with the microaggressions, with cultural appropriation, all this stuff is actually the tyrannical feminine, right? Participation trophies in school, right? It's saying that the system has to guard against everyone's feelings being hurt all the time, right? It's the same with what we talked about bullying. Like, look at what I said, right? I came from the masculine perspective that if your child is being bullied, you teach them to stop the bully. You teach them how to stop the bully. So it doesn't bottle up for 18 years and then tragedies happen. System, right? Right? That is the masculine response. But we actually live within the tyrannical feminine. So it's about microaggressions, it's about participation trophies. And the tyrannical feminine, it's not good. The tyrannical anything. The tyrannical masculine is not good either. There has to be balance, the yin and the yang, right? But our society is so out of balance. Our society is so far to the side of the left, which is the tyrannical feminine, until it becomes the real tyrannical masculine. But our society is so far to the tyrannical feminine that it's used to break people down and divide them and make it so that no one could really talk to anyone, because no matter what you say, it's offensive. No matter what you say, it hurts someone's feelings. Me, I don't care about any of that stuff, but that's why I homeschool. I think it's crazy that people want socialism. Do you think Elon Musk would be on this to Mars? Yeah, I think Elon Musk is just another character in the show. I know people want him to be their savior. I don't see it. Elon Musk is a globalist who wants to put microchips in every one of your brains so that the system could track and keep all of your bad data in a chip in your body that they'll ultimately put your money on so they can turn your money off at any time. He supported the whole truck thing in that country right above the United States, north of the United States, when he's the one who's been making the automated trucks, right? So when he was supporting that, he was really creating the incentives for governments to ultimately adopt his automated trucks. And what he does is he always positions himself and then gets government money. He's a trickster. He's kind of hilarious. He's clearly brilliant. He's a master rhetorician, but I don't trust him as far as I could see him. And I don't think he's the savior that everyone thinks he is. I think he made his money playing on the leftist fears of global warming, of man-made global warming, and he used those fears to get a tremendous amount of government money. That's where his money came from the taxpayer, of government money, and he endeared himself to left-wing America by playing on those climate fears. And now what he's doing is, as the programmers, the controllers, are trying to gain control of maybe losing right-wing America on social media, they come along and they have Musk buy Twitter, allegedly, and he becomes the champion of free speech, and they get all the people back onto that platform, their platform of control. But the real freedom-oriented views, like real freedom stuff, will still be kept off of Twitter, and people won't see that, right? So it's very interesting. It's all psychological warfare. It's all systems of control. Now, yeah, is it good that Musk bought Twitter? Yes, I'm happy he did. Twitter is a freer place, right? It's there's more of a dialogue now than there was. But, don't mistake it for a second. Don't think that this guy's your savior. That's what the system does. You have to understand. If you're a banker, these insurance types, these aristocracy types, these Rockefeller types, your objective is to control the left and the right wing of America. You want to control their leaders so that you can steer them like a flock, like shepherds, right? There was a famous speech given in 1924 by, his name's eluding me. There was a famous speech given in 1924 by a congressman in front of all the powerful bankers. And he said that we've divided them into red and blue, and we've introduced hot button topics that they'll always be divided on, and we can always have them arguing over nonsense, but our agenda will always go through. They'll never actually argue about and stop the things that we're really trying to get through. Like right now, what they're trying to do, the reason the economy is imploding, is they are preparing society for I'm going to change the wording here, a fantastic reset, right? They call it something else, but a fantastic reset. And what that looks like is the government coming in and taking control, not control, they have control, but restructuring the financial system and shifting away from physical currency to a digital dollar. And that is a huge objective, right? And that's what they're going for right now. So everything's part of that. Everything's part of an agenda. And, that's not what people focus on. That's not where the media draws people's attention. That's not where the system draws people's attention. They will never turn your attention toward what they want you to actually focus on. People think the primary function of media is to control the public mind in terms of this is what they think about that issue. And that is their objective. But their even grander objective is to hold up the shiny object and get you to look somewhere that they don't care that you're looking, so that you're not looking at the place where the real agenda is going down, so that the left and the right, they don't mind that agenda. They're like, oh yeah, what's the big deal about that? Let it through, right? And that's the system. By the way, I teach a course on the media industrial complex for all members of Homeschools Connected. For anyone interested in that, you get access to that and all my stuff. So the course I teach on the media industrial complex, the course I teach on propaganda using the Cubs to Bears children book series, the course that I teach on the Bill of Rights and the American Revolution, our year-long nature unit study in which children learn construction, photography, videography, art, composting, making fertilizer, planting seeds, taking care of their crops, all types of skills, geography, using a compass. And then they get entrepreneurial experience as part of the nature unit study, whether that's selling flowers, selling candles they make out of beeswax, hosting a bake sale in their front yard. It varies for their age and whatnot. So they get entrepreneurial experience. You get access to our state groups, and we have an amazing community, hundreds of homeschool families with thousands of years of cumulative experience. We have New York groups, Ohio groups, Alabama groups, every state, Florida groups. There's a state, you name it, we have a group. Our primary chat where people are talking all day and going over stuff. Hey, I'm having this problem with my homeschooler. What do you suggest? Hey, what do you think about this curriculum? We have a pen pal program, and you get all of that for the very exclusive price. I really try to keep this stuff away from people, of $10 a month with the discount code FREEDOM, all lowercase. And that's Homeschools Connected at www.classicallearner.com. Marxism, America's at war. Oh yeah, well, everything's subversive, right? They subvert the education system. They subvert Hollywood. They subvert media. They take what is good and they turn it into an instrument of destruction. And that's what the system does. My 4-year-old doesn't want to go to school. I'm not sure if I can, because what she hears from her cousin. I'm not sure if it's because what she hears from her cousin. Yeah, well, children, by the time they get to like 5th grade, hate school. So children know. The tyrannical feminine. Yeah, that's what we live in. America, the Western world, is the tyrannical feminine. Now, the Eastern world, the countries in the East, they are the tyrannical masculine, right? Now, the right thing is probably a balance somewhere in between, but that's what you're seeing in the world. And the tyrannical feminine is what we've grown up in. And of course, because they invert everything, they say patriarchy, patriarchy, patriarchy. It's the opposite of that. It's the tyrannical feminine. It's why men are so demonized in our society. Masculinity, you always hear toxic masculinity, toxic masculinity. Why is that? Because they're pushing everything toward what is real, their toxic version of femininity. They if there was if it was actual patriarchy that they were pushing, what you would hear is toxic femininity, right? But you don't, right? And of course they subvert what the feminine is. That's why it's toxic femininity. It's a toxic matriarchy, right? Because it's too powerful to the left. You know, real femininity wouldn't discourage women from having families. It wouldn't discourage women from being mothers, telling them that liberation is going on birth control and sexualizing themselves, right? Like, it's the tyrannical feminine, it's toxic femininity, but you don't ever hear that term because that's the objective. So what you'll hear all the time is patriarchy, toxic masculinity, patriarchy, toxic masculinity. It's the opposite. Too many public school kids I know are on their mid-20s and on psych meds. You better believe it. My oldest turns 5 on Friday, and I have family members for a while tell me to medicate him. 5 years old, they're telling you to medicate him. Trust your discernment. They're indoctrinated. What they're saying is they believe in it, but that doesn't make them right. I love you, dude. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm not going to say I love you because I don't know you, but I like you a lot. I like you a lot. That's why we took my son out. They wanted him to be medicated. Yeah, it's a travesty what they do to these young children, and it zaps the creativity out of them. It zaps the spark out of them, and it's everything that's wrong with the system. Trying to get back to where your comments were. It jumps. Man, it jumped a lot. All right. The world is really upside down. Yes, it is. I bought all of your books on Amazon and my homeschoolers, and they love them. Thank you, and make sure you download the lesson plans from my website. They're free. I made them myself, and they go along with the books. So there's free lesson plans, and if you decide afterwards you would like to, I also have a course in Homeschools Connected that I teach it. It uses the Cubs to Bears series to. It's called Foundations of Propaganda, and it's a really great course. So I would definitely check that out. I'm probably going to do the homeschool thing. Do I have a firearms safety course for high schoolers? That would be cool. That would be a great course. I don't have that course yet. That's actually a great idea. I'm going to screenshot that. Squirrels, Lou. Squirrels. Just finished my first year of homeschool, but I like what I hear from you. Congratulations. How do you handle the people in your life that think you are sheltering your child and not supportive? I mean, my child right now, as we speak, is at a camp. He is at a camp that's running just this week. It's for 1 week, Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. It's at a local church, and he's doing that because he asked me if he could, and I told him he could. We were at the church. Actually, we were at the church as part of they're having a sale, like a garage sale type thing, and we were talking to them, and the guy was telling me, he was like, "Yeah, we're having a camp just for 1 week in a couple of weeks. It's going to be this and that." And Brady said, "Hey, Dad, can I go to that?" And I said, "Yeah." So he's at a camp right now, and he will be for the next 3 days. He has a class that he attends every Sunday at the church that we go to, which he absolutely loves. The season's over right now, and it starts again back. It will start again in the fall. But he's on a baseball team that usually has practice Mondays and Fridays, and he absolutely loves baseball. He's in a gymnastics class every Friday. He's in a jiu-jitsu class every Wednesday. We go into town probably 5 days a week. His friend is after, so he'll get out of camp at 11:30, and his best friend and her mother, along with their 1-year-old child as well, are coming over at 12:30 today, and they'll probably be here for about 5 hours. He has a birthday party this coming Sunday with his friends down the block, and that party will be at a local splash park, which Brady's pretty excited about. We go to parks every week. We went to the park, I think, 2 times this week, 2 different parks. We have play dates every week. So I could keep going, right? We go to the aquarium all the time. We go to museums. We go to restaurants. No, I don't think socialization's a concern. Now, if I was sending my child to public school, yeah, I'd be concerned. I'd be concerned that public schools are teaching my child that not covering your face is a threat to the well-being of grandma. I have a concern that public schools are teaching my child that getting within 6 feet of your friends is dangerous to you, to them, and someone else. Yeah, that's concerning. I worry about what that does to the psychological makeup of my child, but no, homeschooling them, nah, they'll be just fine. Are you teaching the classes? Yeah, I teach classes on Bill of Rights in the American Revolution, propaganda using the Cubs to Bears children book series, and that class is awesome. The media industrial complex. So the propaganda class, the media industrial complex, and the nature unit study are all pre-recorded right now. And the Bill of Rights course, which is the Bill of Rights in the American Revolution, I teach live every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. That's winding down. That's coming to an end. But that replay will also be available. And then come September, I'm going to teach another live course on a topic to be named. Possibly on, I might do a course on writing, creative writing, which could be really fun. I have to make up my mind about what I want to do. But yeah, we'll be teaching a course in September as well. And every course that I teach, I record, and then those become pre-recorded and available for the members. And then also, one of the things we'll be releasing over the next couple of weeks is our new science curriculum, which is all about hands-on learning and the scientific method. And I'm really excited about that as well. So yeah, absolutely crushing. And like I said, it's $10 a month. So if you don't like it, you could just drop it and be out $10. But you'll like it, so that's what's up. I've been doing classical conversations for a half a year. I really love it. But I love how they make my kids not be shy. Yeah, that's awesome. Classical Conversations has a program where you meet up with other children in your area once a week. So That's pretty cool. I just don't like that they're not grading. Oh, I like that. I think grades are. What is the purpose of a grade? What is the function of a grade? The only thing that you should grade your child on, especially in early childhood, is were they attentive and were they giving effort? And if they were attentive and giving effort, they got an A plus. I don't care if, oh, but you were supposed to memorize and know this by, by first grade. All right, did they try to memorize and know it? Yeah, then they got an A plus. Like, they'll know it when they're ready to know it. I don't care about the outcome. I care about the process. The only thing that should be graded is the process. Are you putting in the work? Are you paying attention? Are you asking questions? Are you focused? And if you're doing those things, I don't really care about the result. The result will be what the result is. If I master the process of learning, then as they get older, they will be good at that process and they will learn. That's what matters, the process, not the, oh, you took a test and got this many questions right. I don't care. What is the purpose of that? What is the purpose? The process. School grades the outcome and ignores the process. When in reality, it should grade the process and ignore the outcome. Not that you ignore the outcome, but you get it. You adjust based on the outcome. If your child does the process right, and then they take their math test and they get a 0 on it because they can't do addition, you say, okay, we could learn from this outcome. We need to adjust our process. So now, instead of going on to multiplication and leaving that child behind because they don't even know addition, you're saying, okay, the process was good. You worked hard and applied yourself. You didn't get addition at all. Instead of going forward to math, instead of going forward and doing multiplication, we're going to continue with addition and we're going to try to learn it in a different way so that you understand it. And we start to understand your learning style. The process is what matters. Grade the process, not the outcome. I need my kid in this homeschooling thing. Yeah, homeschooling is where it's at. Disney Jr. had a cartoon about microaggressions. Exactly. What they're doing, children don't think that way. Children don't think in terms of like we met someone recently that had really bad deformities, really bad deformities. And my 4-year-old, not only did he not comment on it, he never asked. I wondered if he would ask. Not a peep, didn't even ask about it. That type of thing doesn't enter his mind, right? What they're doing is they're training children to judge each other by their differences. The exact opposite, the subversion, the inversion of what they say it's meant to do. And they know the system, the teachers are brainwashed, indoctrinated, and dumb. But the people that put together the system, they're well aware of the function. They're training children to judge each other and see each other by those characteristics. Everything's inverted. They've taught us to go against each other for having opposing views. Exactly. We have to break the cycle. One of the things that Ben Franklin's father did when he was a child is Ben Franklin's father would find people from all different cultures and perspectives, and he'd invite them over for dinner. People he didn't know. He'd invite them over for dinner, and then he would sit there with them and little Ben, and they would have talks about their perspectives. And he did this to train Ben to keep his mind open and to hear the perspectives of other people. And there's a very powerful lesson in that. The tyrannical feminine is teaching children to focus on microaggressions because you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, to focus on political correctness because you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, to everyone gets a participation trophy, right? Like, it's participation trophies. It's teaching children that if they get bullied, that it's not okay to defend themselves, right? Because you just tell, and then the adults come in and they make sure everyone feels good. Our culture is the tyrannical feminine. How do you handle friends and family that are unsupportive? I tell them that if they're that concerned about little Matthew missing out on something, right, then they could either take action and do something, or you don't want to hear about it. Like, I understand you have an opinion. I heard it. Okay. You're concerned about Matthew not socializing. Great. Then I hope that if you're that concerned, that every Saturday or Friday or whatever, you pick up Matthew at this time and you take him to a local library or museum or Bounce You or Altitude or a kid's place and make sure he gets that socialization, or to a park. And if you're not willing to do that, then I'm not really, I don't really want to hear your concern. I'm concerned that he's not learning this. Okay, so every Tuesday, are you going to pick him up and do it with him? Then you're not that concerned. Don't worry, I'll teach it. I mean, do you know, like, it's so comical. Like, this week, we're dropping Brady off at camp from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Do you know how much easier it is on Nicole and I to drop him off? Like, people aren't homeschooling because they're lazy. They're homeschooling because they care much more than the average person about how their child is educated, about the influence in their child's life. Yeah, you know how much easier it is to drop your child off and be like, this is nice. Like, don't put your child into government-sanctioned, perverted daycare and then tell me, like, you're concerned. No, I'm concerned. Like, I'm concerned that you don't take more responsibility in educating your child. Like, why would you let your child be educated by people with a worldview that's antithetical to yours? People who are teaching your child things that you're not comfortable with. No, I'm concerned about that. Don't concern troll me. I know, Hardwood Bear's laughing. He's like, people think homeschoolers are lazy. Yeah, Hardwood, I was saying that this week my son is going to a camp from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. just this week, Monday through Thursday. He wanted to go, and it's at a local church. I was fine with it. And I'm like, do you know how much easier it is for me to drop him off? Like, it is so much harder to be a homeschool parent. But here's what I'll warn people about. Choose your hard. Choose your hard. Because it might be harder now to be a homeschool parent. And homeschool parents sacrifice so much more of their time to do it. But when your child grows up, it'll be easier. It'll be easier. When your child grows up and they're not indoctrinated, they haven't been taught to hate themselves, they're not riddled with anxiety and depression and fear and bullying, they haven't been told, right, that they should hate themselves and their ancestors, right? It'll be easier then. Choose your hard. Because if you send your child to public school now, it'll be hard later. Why did little Matthew grow up to be a socialist? I'll tell you why. Because you wanted government-sanctioned daycare when little Matthew was a baby. Homeschool parents are the most committed parents in the world. My kids are going to vacation Bible school, vocational, vacation. Going to Bible school this week. Yeah, it's a camp at a local church. Brady's going from 9 to 11:30, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, just this week. He wanted to go, and I thought it was a good idea. I think it'll be a good experience. It's at the church, so I don't have to worry about them teaching him things that I find to be very inappropriate, and he'll have a good time, so I'm okay with that. I'm hip to Elon's trickery. I think I'm gonna, let me see. Bertaria crushing. Saving him from getting the you-know-what. See my wife dancing. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna call it a day on that. So, I got to go get Brady in a little bit. So if you're interested in what I do, Homeschools Connected, www.classicallearner.com. Use the discount code FREEDOM, and it is $10 a month. And you can find me Classical Learner on basically everything. So I love it. Good chat. And hey, Melissa, I was just wrapping this up, and I'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Louder for the ones in the back. All right, but I'm calling it. All right, guys.